It was a quiet Friday afternoon when I got the call from my son, Brandon. He was a freshman in college and only came home on certain weekends. This was one of those weekends, and I'd been looking forward to it. We'd planned to have dinner together, just the two of us, and catch up on everything that had been going on in his life. I answered the phone, expecting him to tell me he was on his way. Instead, I heard a familiar hesitation in his voice. "Hey Mom, listen. I was wondering if it would be cool if I brought a few friends over. Just for the night." I paused. It wasn't what I'd expected, but I didn't want to seem unwelcoming. "How many are we talking, Brandon?" "Just 3. They're great guys. You'll love them. We won't be any trouble, promise." He sounded hopeful. I could tell this meant something to him. Against my better judgment, I agreed. "All right, but just for tonight. I wasn't expecting guests." He thanked me, said they'd be there in an hour, and hung up before I could change my mind. I looked around the house, a bit of panic rising in my chest. The living room needed tidying, the guest bathroom wasn't exactly guest-ready, and I hadn't made enough food for 4 extra people. Still, I hustled to get things in order, reminding myself this was a good thing. Brandon was including me in his life, and that mattered more than anything. When they arrived, the energy in the house instantly shifted. Brandon walked in first, smiling and looking every bit like a young man growing into his own. Behind him came 3 guys, all different in personality but united by that easy college charm. There was Chris, tall with shaggy hair and an easy smile. Then there was Devon, the quiet type who wore headphones around his neck like an accessory. Lastly came Jake, the most outgoing of the bunch, with a charismatic confidence that filled the room. I greeted them all, doing my best to seem relaxed, even though I was already worried about the sleeping arrangements, the noise, the food, and 1,000 other little things. They thanked me for letting them stay and brought in their backpacks and a few snacks. I noticed Brandon watching me carefully, maybe sensing my internal conflict. Dinner was surprisingly smooth. They told stories about dorm life, professors who couldn't pronounce names right, and late-night pizza runs. I laughed more than I expected, and for a while, it actually felt nice. They were polite, engaging, and surprisingly respectful. But things began to shift as the night wore on. It started small. Chris offered to help with dishes, which I appreciated, but he lingered in the kitchen longer than necessary. He asked me questions about myself, how long I'd lived in the house, what I did for work, if I had any hobbies. At first, it felt like friendly conversation, but something about the way he looked at me made me uncomfortable. I brushed it off. College kids can be awkward. Later, as I was folding blankets for them to use in the living room, Jake joined me. He leaned on the doorframe and smiled. "You're not like most moms. You're like, cool." I forced a laugh. "I'm just trying to be hospitable. You're doing a great job. Honestly, this place is way nicer than our dorms. It's like a retreat." I nodded, hoping that would be the end of it. But he didn't move. "Do you ever get lonely out here?" The question caught me off guard. "That's a strange thing to ask." He shrugged. "Just wondering. You seem like someone who deserves company." I folded the last blanket and turned to him with a firmer tone. "You should join the others. It's getting late." He got the hint, thankfully, and walked away. I took a deep breath, trying to settle the unease building in my stomach. I told myself they were just being flirty in a harmless, misguided way. They were young, immature, and probably didn't realize how inappropriate it was. I didn't want to make a scene or embarrass Brandon. But the night didn't end there. Around midnight, I heard noises in the kitchen. I got up to check and found Devon rummaging through the fridge. He looked startled when I entered. "Oh, sorry. I was just looking for a drink." "It's fine, but maybe knock next time." "It's late." He nodded, but then he just stood there, staring at me. "You really don't look like Brandon's mom." I offered a polite smile and reached past him to close the fridge. "Thanks, but it's late. Everyone should be getting some sleep." He didn't move. Do you ever feel like you missed out on things? I felt something in me shift. Devon, I think it's time for bed. There was a long pause before he finally backed away and went to the living room. I locked the door behind him, feeling the tension in my shoulders. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee. Brandon came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Sleep okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He nodded. "Yeah. I think the guys had a good time too." I debated whether or not to say something. But how could I? I didn't want to seem like I was overreacting or make Brandon feel ashamed. Still, he must have noticed something in my face. "Is everything okay?" I hesitated. "Brandon, your friends were a little intense last night. Nothing happened, but I just felt uncomfortable." His expression changed. "What do you mean?" I explained carefully about the things they'd said, the way they lingered, how I felt their attention wasn't just polite. He listened quietly, his jaw tightening. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know they'd act like that. I'll talk to them." "That's not necessary," I said quickly. "They're your friends. Just, maybe next time, let's keep it small." He agreed. They left that afternoon, and I watched from the window as they drove off. Brandon glanced back and gave me a small, apologetic smile. That night, I sat on the porch, sipping tea and thinking about the whole experience. I'd wanted to say yes to Brandon, to be the kind of mom who welcomed his friends and made their lives a little easier. But in doing so, I'd put myself in a situation I wasn't prepared for. I realized something important. Being a parent doesn't mean you always say yes. Sometimes, love looks like boundaries. Sometimes, it's okay to protect your space. A week later, Brandon called me again. "Hey Mom, just wanted to say thanks again for letting the guys stay. I know it wasn't ideal." "It's all right. You're always welcome, Brandon. Just, maybe next time come alone." He laughed. "Deal." And that was it. I'd learned something about myself, about what I was willing to allow in my home, and how I wanted to feel within it. It didn't matter how old Brandon got. Being his mom would always mean balancing love with limits. And next time, I'd listen to that quiet voice inside me that said no, even when it was hard to say. Because sometimes, saying no is the kindest thing you can do, for yourself and for the people you love.